Okay, seeing none, I will move on to agenda item 5, which is an update from McGuire Mears on the current development projects and realtor listing agreement in the Crossroads Business Park. Come on up here. That is the world's loudest microphone, so.
And sit here,
Yeah,
then
okay,
you can
good.
navigate through the website. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
I handed out something there. So there should be two different things. I didn't print out enough for everybody, so if you wouldn't mind just pairing up with somebody to take a look. My name is Mandy Witt, and I am with Caldwell Banker Commercial, McGuire Mears and Associates, and our office is located in Janesville. We are representing the city of Milton in the sale of 5 lots that are for sale in the park at Highway 26 and 59. 3 of those lots are commercial or retail lots, and 2 are industrial. I represent the marketing efforts that go into the commercial or retail portion of the property, and my managing broker, Bill Mears, represents the industrial listings. I've given you some materials there. And the very top sheet is a sale flyer that outlines the 5 lots that are available for sale, as well as the prices and the information. And if you take a look at the second page, these are the marketing materials that we put together for all 5 of the sites. So the second page shows the properties that are available for retail or commercial use, followed by the industrial properties. And then if you keep turning the page, the individual lots then are listed with the prices, acreage, and whatnot. If you turn a little bit further, it shows the Crossroads Business Park and the demographics of the area in a 3, 5, and 7 mile radius. Talks about population, households, things like that. These are things that are important to the different businesses and companies that may or may not come to the area. The next page shows area users, both retail users as well as industrial users. And then there's a broker disclosure form that is included in all of our marketing materials. There's also 2 different individual pages that are shown here that look like this. These are the lots, the signs that are posted on the retail or commercial lots that are listed out there. And the second one that shows the shovel-ready industrial sites for sale. Those are the signs that will be put up at the industrial sites, but we just were approved for those sign permits, I believe either yesterday or today. The properties are listed on 3 separate websites through our company. The first is our company website, which is McGuire Mears and Associates. McGuireMears.com, as well as LoopNet. And then we have a specific Crossroads Business Park website, and I'm actually going to take you through that. Thanks. Okay. All right. So this is the Crossroads website that our company put together for the internet. And it's cross as an X roads. I've got to look now. Crossroadsbusinesspark.com. So on the website, and I don't know if anybody wants to follow along or not with their phones or iPads, but on the website itself, it shows the Crossroads Business Park. And I'm not sure how well you can see that, but it's got both commercial lots and the industrial lots that can be separated there and taken a look at individually. And I can't see the, okay. And then we recently added a drone video of the area that goes around the area and shows, and I don't know if you can see this very well, but it shows the property as well as surrounding users, identifies the streets, the main streets, the acreage that's available out there. So it gives the user an opportunity to take a look to see what is going on around the area. So the next tab over is then the actual available lots that are there, and we've got them all individualized, similar to the sale flyer that I have in that group of materials. So by clicking on whatever the, So by clicking on whatever lot it is that somebody might be inquiring about, it'll take them to our McGuire Mears website for more information about that particular piece of property. Next, we have a City of Milton tab that talks about just some general history of the City of Milton, as well as the demographics that were provided in the sale flyer that may or may not be attractive to our target user, as well as contact information for the city administrator with email and phone number. The next tab over is our contact information that lists both my managing broker and myself, and then other listings, because it's always relevant for us to let other people know what else is available when it comes to competitive rates and things like that. We also have things that are available in the area that are both available for lease and for sale. So we've been actively pursuing selling the pieces of property by cold calling and networking, as well as constant contact email. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or not. It's how we get a lot of our information out to people. We've been meeting with city officials and educating citizens about what's available out there, because word of mouth is so important, as well as speaking with the Rock County Development Authorities. Target buyers, we believe that a clinic or hotels or industrial users with railroad needs are our target people. And realistically, we feel that the bypass area could or would or should be similar to the Highway 26 and 12 area up in Fort Atkinson, where you can see hotels, or a hotel, convenience store, a veterinarian clinic, paint store, fast food restaurants, fast casual, as well as office users. Some other factors that need to be considered when we are making our marketing attempts are competitive pricing with the surrounding lots in the area, as well as the challenge of the access that is available through the DOT, and also the motivation that will be brought to the area for the developments that they're currently proposed or in action. So does anybody have any questions?
I have some questions.
Sure.
On your page where you have the information of the population and household and that with a map showing the businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I'm sorry, it's the back page there. You have an arrow directing Harmony Town Line Road to 9039, but I don't see that for Highway 26 coming into 59.
That map doesn't show that area.
Well, your arrow is pointing to Town Line Road. It's pointing, would be to the west.
So on the second map,
On
I
the
don't see the
bottom.
arrow, I'm sorry.
On the bottom picture here.
Sure. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, see, this is.
Oh, they're showing the arrow that that's where 290 and 39 would be, is off to the, what would that be, the west.
Why wouldn't you put that closer to Highway 59, to that interchange that's right next to the industrial park?
Because it's showing the location that's toward 90 and 39.
Okay, and then my other question is, and I did not look at the website,
Okay.
but I don't see any reference to the proximity to Rockford, and I don't see anything for railroad.
You are correct in saying that there is no reference to railroad. So that's something that we need to take a look at. And then what was the other, the proximity to Rockford. We talk about the proximity to the Milwaukee area as well as Chicago and Madison, but yes, again, we do not talk about the proximity to Rockford. So those are things that we could add to that.
Okay. Are you getting some good responses?
We haven't seen a whole lot of activity, but that being said, we haven't seen a whole lot of activity in the surrounding area a lot, in the northern Illinois or the southern Wisconsin area. So there just hasn't been a whole lot of activity in general.
That's all that I have for question.
Additional questions from the council? No? Okay, well, we appreciate you coming in to give us an update.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Agenda item 6 tonight is the approval of the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 7 is old business. Agenda item A is discussion and possible action on an offer to purchase an easement and lease agreement on Clear Lake Avenue Water Tower. I understand this was discussed a couple meetings ago. The direction was to research this a bit more. Staff has done that. I will turn it over to Administrator Hulick to review the memo.
Thank you. Mayor, oh, look at that. All right. At the September 16th meeting, which also happens to coincide with my very first day on the job, this item was taken up by the council, and in that evening, the item was reviewed and vote to not approve the offer to purchase an easement, the lease agreement on the water tower. Additionally, council directed me to do some additional research on this item and try to talk to I guess other communities and find out more information about this type of business practice. In doing so, I contacted Unisod directly and spoke with them. And I don't know if that represents Unisod here. Okay. I spoke with them directly about this plan and how we got to this point. Because again, it was my first day and it was not the first time I'd heard of it, but pretty darn close. And really, in reaching out to other communities and looking through this agreement, I think that there's definitely a benefit to the community of Milton. There's also a risk, but in general, the risk is only associated with what may happen. There's no guarantees of that risk. What can be guaranteed with this agreement is that there will be an allocation of dollars to the city of Milton up front for the use of this property. It is my opinion in my research and the opinion of many others who are in this field that this is a volatile industry, that there are changes that are taking place every day, and that it's hard to predict the future. So can be looked at in two different ways, in my opinion. You can look at it as we may be missing an opportunity if we do this, or we may be missing an opportunity if we don't do this. But it's hard to predict. What the market has shown is that the U.S. cellular arrays are dwindling. They're disappearing. U.S. cellular is being bought up nationwide by other providers such as Sprint and Verizon and things of that nature. What we've seen in neighboring communities, especially to the south of us, is that US Cellular is abandoning their arrays, especially on public facilities.
Why
They've-
are they doing that?
because they're being bought up by larger groups like Sprint and Verizon, and then they can join on to their existing facilities and kind of combine their resources.
And then do Sprint and Verizon not use water towers because they're ineffective as a
I can't speak to that directly, and maybe the folks from Unison can, but it's more of not necessarily a water tower as much as it is a consolidation of assets. When they already have an existing asset, they don't need to then go out and lease another one or double up their assets. In the case of Milton with the water tower on the west side, I'm not an engineering expert, but I don't know if that would be more effective or less effective than some of the other facilities that already exist in this area. And it's hard to predict if US Cellular gets bought up by one of those other facilities, are their existing facilities able to accommodate those?
So my question is, so Sprint buys up US Cellular, is Sprint abandoning that?
They could.
I'm asking, are they, and how many instances have they done it so far in the
Well,
numbers?
right.
The numbers.
I don't know if they would. There's no guarantee that they would. There's no guarantee that Sprint would buy US Cellular. There's no guarantee that if they did, they would leave that location.
So I guess my question is,
You need to use the mic.
because, okay, my question is, in the areas that US Cellular has been brought up, what are the numbers and are they abandoning?
Well, we invited the folks from Unison to be here tonight. I know Robin and I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
David Walker.
David Walker. So I'll invite them up here briefly to share some information that they've got.
Because that's a good question.
And thank you for having us here tonight. We appreciate that. You
So
want-
in US, what US Cellular just recently did is they sold the markets of Ohio, Michigan, Northern Indiana, Chicagoland, Central Illinois, and St. Louis. They sold those markets to Sprint. What they sold was their customers and their spectrum, the airwaves. None of the equipment went with the sale, and it's because Sprint didn't need, nor did they want any of the equipment. They didn't want any of the antennas, they didn't want any of the sheds, they didn't want any cell towers. That's not why these guys buy each other anymore. It's not for equipment. It's for spectrum and customers. So what they have done in those markets is they have simply taken their antennas down, rolled up their cables, and walked away.
So what does Sprint use then?
Their own sites. So this is what we call this, that's a site. And every carrier, there are 350,000 cell sites in the United States. Every carrier has their own site. You have this water tower, which can handle additional tenants on that tower. Now, correct, so carriers. So we're gonna diligently work to get AT&T and Verizon, Sprint on your site.
But why would Sprint go on our site if they already have their own site?
That's exactly, right? So not everybody has great coverage here. I have T-Mobile.
He's been losing calls all day.
It stinks. I've been saying bad things about T-Mobile all afternoon, is because if I lived here, I would not have T-Mobile. So this is a prime area for something like that. And quite frankly, our whole goal is to drive revenue to the sites in our portfolio, because we want to make more money. And the only way to make more money on a site such as yours is to bring on additional tenants. Because if we work together, we can't go to US Cellular and say, give us more rent. No, the lease states this is what it is. They're not going to just start paying us more money out of the kindness of their heart. The only way to make more money is to bring on additional tenants. And when I say tenants, I'm not talking about cell phone companies only. We look to drive revenue, like I said. So that's everything wireless. Wi-Fi, integrated antenna systems, microwave. Unison is leased space to the FBI, Homeland Security, Coast Guard, anything wireless. that's what we look to put on the sites.
And we share that with you on a 50/50 basis.
And so you would determine on that type of stuff float around in our air.
If there was a company, sure. I guess just to answer your question, if there was a company out there who was putting something out that was environmentally unsafe, yeah, then no. No, actually, in our agreement, we can't do that because there's an environmental clause in our agreement where we cannot do that.
What if it's not even there isn't a restriction on it because
Research, I mean, there's been extensive research on these. There's been studies done by councils, the parent groups, where they didn't want antennas at the elementary school. And the parent group commissioned this study, and the people doing the study, they knew the answer that the parents wanted. They wanted the answer, this is unsafe. They could not come up with that answer. It's not unsafe.
sure, but I guess my basic question is you guys basically within a certain amount of regulation all say whether we want it or not, right?
Well, we could do it a couple of different ways. We can make it to where we don't market to bring on additional tenants. We work solely with the existing lease. Or we can do it where we do market and bring on additional tenants. We can go either way.
Right, but if you market, you decide, right? Like, we don't have any say.
Well, the language has been worked out beforehand with our attorney and with Mark, so they can specifically specify what may or may not go on there. I mean, it wouldn't be something that Mark hasn't already reviewed and agreed beforehand, if that gives you, to give you comfort that way. Okay. Well,
The answer is yes, yes. Again, just straight skinny, the answer, that specific question is yes. Or we can do it to where we can't do that. We can make it to where we can't bring on additional tenants, or any additional tenants must have your approval. We can go that route. We can absolutely go that route.
I suspect this is the exact conversation that was had when we first decided to lease to the cellular, U.S. Cellular. I think I was on the council when that happened, and I'm almost positive I remember some people asking about, the radio waves or the cellular signal bouncing around. At the end of the day, the city has made a determination that we are going to, lease that space, at least to U.S. Cellular. To think that U.S. Cellular is going to be a tenant for the next 40 years or even 20 years is probably a bit speculative. And so to count on the revenue that we were planning to get from that lease is probably not something we should take for granted. Here is an opportunity to, I think, really inject some money into a water fund that truly does need it. Our water fund has been leveraged heavily in recent years for a number of things, some of which had to do with capital, some had to do with personnel costs, with the changeover to the PTO system. And this is an opportunity to inject some dollars into that fund, and then hopefully to work with partners at Unison to grow revenue on that site in a safe way, a way that fits our community standards, as everything we do should, and hopefully further bolster that fund. One of the things that we've talked a lot about in recent months here, and I know I've talked about it with some of you, is at a certain point we're going to hit capacity for our wastewater and our water treatment. We need to start looking at non-levy revenue sources for projects that we want to accomplish, things that will come out when we do that strategic planning. So this is an opportunity that doesn't come up particularly often. We negotiated, I would say, fairly aggressively, and this deal that is before you tonight and that has the support of staff, after doing some significant research and has my support, is an opportunity to take and start a very legitimate business relationship with a company who focuses on something that isn't even on our radar, which is growing non-levy revenue on a community asset that currently is being utilized to a very small extent.
In a volatile market.
In a volatile market. This guarantees us $215,000 right away, $215,000 at the end of 20 years, and it locks up that revenue for the citizens of the city of Milton, for the water fund, and it does so in a way that, yes, are there potentially some unknowns? Absolutely, that's how business works. But I think we've done a fairly thorough job of mitigating and vetting those unknowns to a point where staff and I and others that we consulted with felt confident enough to recommend approval of this agreement tonight.
Okay, so did you make changes to the original contract? And if you file for bankruptcy in year 19,
Another good question. So, our agreement, we are Unison. Mark can attest to this. In our agreement, Unison is defined as Unison, its successors, and assigns. Okay? If that site is still generating revenue in year 19 and Unison goes bankrupt, that is going to be assigned to somebody. Somebody is going to collect that rent. Does that make sense? So,
experience of bankruptcies anymore, people don't get paid.
Well,
well, Mark, he might be able to comment and answer that question because he's worked out, that's covered in our agreement. So the answer to your question is yes, because our agreement with the city and with Unison is going to be assigned to somebody to collect that rent. They are a successor to Unison.
Only
So-
if it's producing income. So if you have nobody renting out the tower and
But we're already paying them. We've already paid you up front,
Yeah.
right, at closing?
I'm gonna ask Attorney Schrader to jump in here and provide some clarification.
All right.
Sorry.
All right, yeah, and part of this, I don't know if you have an answer to me yet on my question on the most recent version of this document, but.
Yes, I emailed that to you, Mark, that the changes will be put back to
Okay,
where they were.
all right,
Yep.
I haven't
Yep.
had a chance to see the email, so,
Tomorrow morning, you should have something from Chris, so it'll go back to.
back to how it
we
was
straightened that out.
originally?
Yes.
Okay, it was just that, took that language back out,
Yes.
basically? All right, yeah, so, under the terms of agreement previously approved by the council, there's $215,000 paid upfront. And so your question then has to do with the second payment that's due in 20 years. And if everything continues, of course, nothing is, well, I'll say that this is not airtight. There are ways that even Unison can get out of the remainder of it if it meets certain criteria. And in other words, if it's not producing any revenue
in a volatile market.
in any market, I guess. If it's not producing any revenue.
I was thinking that adjective, that's what we use to describe, that's what everybody's used to describe this market as a volatile market.
Yeah, so if there's no economic activity, as I recall the wording, something to that effect. Basically, if there's no revenue being generated by the facility, that there is an option, a way for them to get out on it. Absent that, the payment is due in 20 years, as you've noted. Now, if there's a bankruptcy, then that's something that we'll have to deal with in the bankruptcy court. And that may or may not be assigned. I won't know whether that would be a Chapter 11, whether that be a liquidation bankruptcy. I can't tell you in 20 years what that would be, any more than Unison could tell us today what that would be. If it's assigned, yes, then the contract, if assigned, would still be applicable to whoever it's assigned to. But I can't tell you more than that, not even knowing in 20 years what the bankruptcy law is going to be, of course. So, I mean, that's changed, as you know, within the last 10 years significantly. So it certainly could again, between now and then.
And in this new contract, do we have a 30-day opt-out?
Each of the 20 years is prepaid in full. So to give some sort of an opt-out would,
You talking about the city having opt-out?
Yeah, so they can give 30 days notice and be done with us. Can we give 30 days notice and be done with them? No, this one had a notice in there like that.
That had, the 30-day notice, as I recall, without finding it here exactly, was, as I recall looking at it, had to do with that opt-out if there's no economic activity.
Right, so if there's no economic activity, they can give us a 30-day notice and be done. And then
Right.
they don't have to pay the $215,000.
The second one, correct.
Right.
Right. And of course, they have no right to refund of what they paid, and it's written that they have no right to any future payments as well. So if somebody else were located on there, they would have no right to any continued stream of payments. Then under that scenario, whether they'd meet the criteria for getting out of it, that's a question, of course. But once they terminate, they have no right to any continued stream, and they don't have a right to any refund for what they paid to date. So then it basically goes back to the city, and the city has the option to do with it as it wishes. It can re-let it to anybody else, market it, whatever it wants to do at that point in time. So it is correct that the only guarantee under the agreement is the $215,000. That's correct. And then the best that one can do beyond that can do with the current arrangement then, given that there's another 20-year payment, is to limit the discretion in terms of being able to get out of it before the end of the 20 years. And so it's limited to that non-economic activity, and you correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
That's non-economic activity one, nothing else, not if they're not happy with it, not if they decide to merge with somebody else, which is the most common thing that happens in this industry. So that's what has been negotiated to this point in time. So that I would say correct that. Nothing's guaranteed, but that's the limits of the discretion on getting out of it within that time period.
Now, did you say that we can opt out of it, that we have the 30 days also? I didn't hear that part, I'm sorry.
No, I don't recall that unless there's a breach on their part.
And who decides that breach, and who would pay the attorney fees if that were the case? Is that our attorney fee or theirs?
There is a provision that talks about if there is a dispute reference to the parties, then it would go to Rock County Circuit Court, and then whoever is successful basically pays the reasonable attorney fees of the other.
Okay, and I have some other questions. What companies do you generally market to? I know I actually spoke with some of the council person from Wauwatosa recently, and we specifically talked about this. So I would just like to know who are you marketing to, and on all of the other towers that you have?
Well, we market the portfolio. We have a portfolio, and that portfolio is marketed, like I said, to everything wireless. We have master lease agreements with the carriers, with the Verizons and the AT&Ts and the Sprints. So everything wireless.
And what about your staffing structure? If we have something that we would like to address, do we have someone specifically that we're working with, or are we going through somebody in the office or somebody that is continually out in the field? I mean, what is your?
So once the
structure?
site is in the portfolio, so we've closed, then it goes to a gentleman by the name of Mark Caston. He is the head of lease administration and marketing at Unison. It would go to Mark and his team. The easiest way, I've been with Unison 11 years, the best way to get a result, you're gonna call her. You're gonna say, Robin, blah, 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 blah. I'll take care of it. And it gets handled. That's the fastest way.
Okay, and what is your structure? Your staff structure? Is it just Robin and you and?
So here, locally, it's us. I'm the vice president of site development, so it's us here, and then it would go to, it's Mark Caston in New York. He's the head of, like I said, lease administration and marketing.
How many leases do you have in the state of Wisconsin on publicly owned facilities?
A dozen, maybe,
I don't know.
18
Right. I know,
on publicly owned.
Right.
Yeah, I would say 12 to 18.
And how many different cities?
It's a great question. I don't know. I mean, when we're talking about cities and fire departments and park districts.
we sent you a pretty thorough list of, sites that we've closed on municipalities and whatnot, so there's quite a few. I mean, we've been doing this for a while. I just want to address your question that you had earlier about Unison, having that out clause. Unison really can't default because we're paying you upfront, right? So I don't know how familiar you guys are with the lease, but these leases typically have 30, 60 to 90-day termination language in the lease. And the reason the carriers write the leases that way is because they don't know where the industry's going. They don't know where the consolidation's going. They can't promise to pay rent for 25 or 30 years, and they don't know what's going to happen the day after tomorrow. So as long as we have revenue coming in off of the tower, Unison wouldn't terminate the agreement. It would be the carrier that terminated the agreement, and if US Cellular terminated, we're the ones that would lose out because we've paid you guys already up front. So we're assuming the risk, we're hedging ourselves against the risk, but we're assuming the risk.
Who, do you already have some companies that have already committed to this tower?
No.
We don't
I
market.
say that quickly because Mark and his team, lease administration and marketing, he didn't know anything about it.
It's not in the portfolio.
He doesn't have it yet. So I would love to be able to stand here and say, well, yes, we do. I can't say that. I mean, I just can't say that.
What other states are you in?
All 50?
We're nationwide.
Are you involved in any lawsuits right now in any of those 50 states?
We're actually involved in a lawsuit with a tower company. And the only reason I know that is because the head of our legal department contacted me and another one on our local team. And it was the other guy on our local team who had, he was the Robin in that deal. But it has something to do with language, right of first refusal language, not because of anything else. It just said language in the original lease.
Which you guys do not have. You don't have any right of first refusal language in the lease.
What happens in a situation where we need to do some work on those water towers?
Not going to stop you 1/2 of 1 minute. You absolutely do it. So I apologize, but I didn't read the US Cellular lease before I came here tonight. But more than likely, in the US Cellular lease, because it's on every municipality lease, anytime there are antennas on a water tower, it probably states in your lease where you have to provide, we'll use US Cellular space to put up what they call a COW, Cellular on Wheels, COW. So this COW is just a portable cell tower. They put them up at racetracks and sporting events, and it's like the news vans where the antenna comes out of the roof. That's a COW. So you provide them space. They take their antennas off. You paint your tower, they put their antennas on, they get rid of the cow. You just need to be able to provide them space to put up a temporary antenna facility. 20 by 20?
So a tornado goes through, water tower. How much time do we have to put it back up, and is there a financial responsibility we have to you, because we no longer have?
Yeah, the whole act of God thing, that's not your fault. In the current lease, so US Cellular's rights and obligations, but their rights under the current lease flow through to our agreement. Because obviously, we can't agree to something that is contrary to something that you've already agreed to. So in your example, in your lease, I'm sure it says something in regards to putting up another facility.
What's in your lease?
It mirrors the US Cellular lease.
Right, we're assuming,
30 days US Cellular can jump off.
Sure.
but we're assuming the lease, so everything that you have in your agreement is what we're obligated to. We're not changing the lease.
Right, but if US Cellular gives their 30-day notice,
Mm-hmm.
and so what are we obligated to you? An act of God. I know, but I'm saying, is there a financial obligation if we don't have available? I want to ask questions. I don't care if you think they're stupid or not.
Oh, no, it's good.
I'm elected here to ask
So are you asking if US Cellular goes away, the water tower blows down,
There's nobody on there, yeah.
how long do you have to put up a new water tower?
Yeah.
You know,
That's a good question. I mean, I've never thought of it that way. I haven't.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch it.
So at that time, that they would put up the cell on wheels.
Right.
I mean, that they would immediately come out, but in our example, they're not there. So it's a good question that
great
I've never thought of before.
I just have a concern, and I would like for Mark to address this. Does this contract give us the ability to also make the determination of what company goes on that tower?
No, it does not.
So what if they want a company that we don't agree with some of their company policies, they abuse their workers, they use child labor in other countries, it's not a company we want to be associated with? We have no say.
You have no legal say. You have always the opportunity to communicate with Unison on reference to any proposed new tenants, but it's correct that you don't have the authority to veto any choice in future tenants. That's correct.
Can we add that?
Well, I mean, it's worth it, not that we have to approve it, everything, but it's, you know, a veto.
Have some sort of a say.
We might be able to, in Mark and Chris is the Unison attorney working with this. They might be able to work this out in the morning. In regards to an additional tenant, yeah, yes, I would venture to say yes. In regards to a replacement tenant, that might be something that Unison wouldn't want to give up, because we're replacing the existing tenant. Because quite frankly, we expect US Cellular to go away. We're going to lose US Cellular. I mean, it's going to happen. Not because they're a bad company, it's because that they're not competing. They can't. The reason why they sold all those other markets is because they were either number 4 or number 5 in those markets. They had to make a decision. Do we spend hundreds of millions of dollars to upgrade to 4G and still be number 4 and number 5? Or do we cut our losses? Well, we expect US Cellular to go away. So we're gonna obviously look to replace it. Additional tenants, we could give approval.
But I think Mark and Unison's attorney can work through
Sure.
that beforehand. It's just, you know, you have to understand it, if Verizon's ready to go onto a site, and we have to first come before our board and get approval on this, and Verizon's ready to go, that can really jeopardize our relationship with Verizon. They'll go onto another tower because they don't have the time to wait for another board meeting, another month, another approval. So we need to have everything laid out beforehand, so we could say to Verizon, okay, we have this site available, we have the easement area, you can go, you know. So it really needs to be worked out beforehand. I think Mark and our attorney can probably add some language beforehand. I don't want the board to lose sight of the meat. The meat of this deal is, you have an asset. Unfortunately, it's a technology-based asset, and technology's changing quickly, the consolidation is continuing, and it can go away at any time. So the meat of the deal is definitely to secure yourself with the capital, maximize your return on the asset, and then the gravy would be to add additional tenants to the tower, which we share with you on a 50-50 basis. We also have in our agreement that we're gonna share with you at lease expiration. If US Cellular is still there, in 2026, Unison will renegotiate a new lease. It probably won't be US Cellular, but it could be a successor company, and we're gonna share that with you guys. So, you know, I think that I just want the board to keep, you know, focused on the prize here, and that's basically is, you know, like your mayor said, it's an asset that can go away at any time. We can secure you, we can assume the risk, and then we can look to drive revenue to the tower, which would bring additional revenue to the city.
So what's the average that you're bringing in on leases from your port? You have like
It's gonna depend on the tenant, and I'm not slow walking you, it's just, so a Wi-Fi company's not gonna pay as much as AT&T.
that's why I'm asking for an average.
It's,
You add them all together, you divide by 8.
Depending on the area, it could be, what would you say, 1,000,
it's,
500?
right, I would say, you know, $800 to $1,500.
A month.
So is this payment that we would get from whoever you are leasing to as your portion, our portion, is that coming to us on a monthly basis?
Some companies pay monthly, some will pay annually, so it depends on the carrier. Most of them pay monthly, most.
But yes, and then at that, and I can guarantee you what's gonna happen, is Unison will come to you and say, hey, we'll pay you X number of dollars for your half of that monthly rent.
So you could be looking at another lump sum down the road.
Or you keep the monthly rent. It's your call at that time.
And can the council get these reports of what type of activity is going on with this lease? Can we get like monthly, bi-monthly, 6-month reports? Just so that we as a council know what's going on our water tower?
You must have standard reporting that you do back to your
You
sites,
can,
correct?
you can request an audit once a year.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to make a motion that we accept the agreement with Unison and the lease that has been presented to us.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
If I can just comment
You may.
on that. Just wanted to clarify one point in terms of, you were asking about termination, we talked about 30-day, and I indicated I thought it was related to non-economic activity, but that, I believe, was probably in the US Cellular lease. So that's where I was getting that from. This is broader, it's a 30-day, for whatever reason, and the reason being is you already have the money. So what, if in 1 year they decide to terminate the lease, then you still keep the $215,000. So just wanted to make that clear. Reference to approving the documents as presented, and I think, as I interpret the motion there, it is discussing the wireless communication easement and assignment agreement and the net profits agreement. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I would just want to make sure that that motion anticipates that the language in the easement agreement dealing with the term is revised to go back to the original language, which
Correct.
was that it's a 40-year term with 2 payments which is consistent with the terms of agreement as opposed to the most recent one that was sent to me, which for some reason was changed, and that's
Correct.
agreeable, correct?
That's
That's
correct.
correct.
All right, I just want to make sure that that's,
It's for 40 years.
it's for 40 years with 2 payments.
Except for these other payments from those who are leasing from you, that we will get 50% of, those will come monthly,
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Yes.
And is that coming from a third party or
Unison.
directly you?
Directly from Unison.
Okay. And is there any way, Mark, that we could even have our city administrator, technical review committee, somebody be involved in looking at what is coming to the tower beforehand?
You mean in terms of proposed new tenants? Is that what you're talking about? You can.
I mean, that's a quicker way. I mean, it's not like you would have to wait a month for a board meeting or for a council meeting. You know, but at least then we have somebody in the city that's looking at what's going on. I just feel like that's something that one of the taxpayers is gonna ask me, is you're just letting them do whatever they want and that's it. And I'm not real,
To an
I'm
extent,
not comfortable.
we're letting them market a specific asset for a specific purpose.
Right.
For a lump sum payment up front of $215,000. I feel comfortable that that's a good value after our research, after a negotiation period. And I would also say that I think from a business standpoint, to have to go through something like what we've just gone through in the last 20 minutes, every time we try to market something as a part of a portfolio to multinational corporations who are looking to move in a market share in the greater Madison region, seems like something that would be a little bit cumbersome. So I have a difficult time imagining what tenants there would be up there that would be so objectionable that we would want to go and jeopardize the whole deal over it. But I'm also not the most creative person in the world. Maybe there are such things. But today we have a motion and a second on the floor.
except, Brett, this is what we do with that's what we just did with the realtors that were here. They come in, they're marketing our industrial park, we are looking at what they're doing before anything actually happens.
The difference is that we're selling an easement here. We're selling use of an asset. And so there has to be some kind of ownership rights relinquished as a part of that. And that's where the marketing and the use of that space comes in. So we do have a motion in a second, so I'm going to call the question on this. All those in favor of the motion to approve the contract, the easement and the net profits agreement, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 4-2. Thank you very much for coming down. We'll get this all worked through in the morning.
Sounds really great.
All right,
Thank you
thank
for
you
your
very
time,
much.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, I don't even know where we're at. Okay, new business A. New business A is consideration of resolution 2014-21, approving an amendment to the project plan and boundaries of TID District 6, City of Milton, Wisconsin. Administrator Helick.
Thank you. As most folks are aware, we are in the process of amending our TIF district number 6, which is the TIF district out in the Crossroads Business Park to our backs. The reason for this amendment is to change the boundaries to reflect 2 pieces of new information. One is we'll be adding what is commonly known to as the Frederick site, which is to the far east edge of the TIF district, 54.7 acre site. And we'll also be amending the boundaries on the western portion of it to reflect a new lot arrangement that exists with the development site at the northeast corner of Sunnyside and Highway 59. State law requires that TIF districts that are established cannot bisect an existing parcel. So when that lot was created via CSM for a development proposal, the TIF boundary bisected that parcel. So we are actually required to amend the TIF district in order to follow those parcel lines. In addition to this amendment, we have updated the project plan to better reflect actual expenditures and updated the potential development projects that may exist in this TIF district moving forward. This item has been brought forth to the Joint Board of Review. They will not make a final determination on this amendment until this body has acted. but we've also brought this forward to the Plan Commission, and that group has approved the amendment. So with that being said, the ultimate change that we're looking at here is a boundary amendment as well as an update to the project plan that would require approval from the council this evening.
How many more amendments do we have on this particular district?
State law limits the number of amendments on TIF districts to 4, and this is our 3rd amendment, so we could potentially amend this district one more time.
We really don't have a choice, right? What you said.
Well, we need to amend it, but we also maximize the use of this amendment by adding in the Frederick site.
Yes. Yes, so, yeah, we need to amend the boundary at least on the western portion. If folks have any objections to the eastern amendment or the updates to the project plan, they could express those at this time, though.
Well, but you're adding in the Frederick site.
Yes.
And tell me more about that, because that means if something is going to be developed out there, we don't
Hopefully.
get tax money for a while, right?
Yeah.
I know it's a
Yep.
way to bring in and entice business, but it also defers, I mean, part of our marketing has always been, well, develop.
Right.
Bring in tax money, bring up tax dollars.
Right.
Pass this ordinance, pass that ordinance, we get money, but then at the same time, we increase our TIF districts and defer
Right.
tax money.
That TID performs very well. The Fredericks property was annexed last year. It was one of those several annexations that we did. It will be developed. It's been discussed in developments over the last 18 months. It will continue to be discussed. I'll let Al talk a little bit about the reason that we put it into the TID, but I'll kind of preface that by saying that there is a development that we'll be discussing, a component of which here in just a moment, that will not be in the TID because they didn't need to be in the TID. That's unusual in our experience here in Milton. Most of the time, we need to be able to offer incentives similar to what the TID allows us to do, and not having a lot of cash to throw at projects. The TID, and a well-performing TID like this one, is a way to do that. You got something on that?
Correct.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we approve.
It's a resolution, so the recommended action would be to approve resolution 2014-21.
I'll make a motion, that motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 8C is discussion and possible action on ordinance number 402, North Janesville Street speed limit. This, we skipped it. We eliminated that.
Okay.
Chief Labor?
This is to amend the speed limit from McEwen up to the north city limits for Old Highway 26, North Janesville, South Janesville Street. The reason we're amending it from McEwen up to that and changing the languages to make it all one speed limit in that area and not hacking it up into several different portions as per suggestion of DPW Director Robinson. We had language in there that had it pretty chopped up and didn't make a lot of sense. And so we changed it from one speed limit all the way from McEwen up to Bowers Lake Road. And was 45 from Nelson to Bowers Lake, it would now be 30. And 30 is the limit already in the city down to McEwen.
Great, and the recommended action this evening from staff and from public safety is to approve ordinance 402, which would require 3 readings. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Is that a motion to approve first and second and waive the third and adopt?
Yes. Second is.
All right. Motion is as well?
Nancy has. Great.
All right, all right. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8D is discussion and possible action on ordinance 403, Class A alcohol license quota. I'll turn this over to Administrator Hulick.
Thank you. Before you this evening is ordinance number 403, which amends the city ordinance to potentially expand the council's discretion in reviewing Class A alcohol license permits, or licenses as they're commonly referred to in the city of Milton. The reason this item has been brought forward is we have been approached by a developer who is looking to develop a site out in the Crossroads Business Park, which the mayor just recently referenced. As part of their development plan or their business model, they will be not only selling gasoline, but they've requested to be able to sell fermented malt beverages, which would be covered under the Class A alcohol license. The way the current ordinances are written in Milton, we are on a quota basis that allows for one Class A license to be provided per 1,500 residents. Therefore, if you do the quick math, the city of Milton has 3 Class A licenses. The ordinance as written, though, provides the council discretion to exceed that quota except for in cases where gasoline is sold at a retail establishment. The amendment before you this evening looks to strike that latter portion of the amendment, or of the ordinance, thus giving the council discretion to exceed the alcohol license quota in any case, not respective to gasoline sales. That's the item before you. If you have questions, I guess, on that specific chamber letter. Oh, sure. Good point. This item was brought forth to the Economic Development Commission, and the Economic Development Commission did support this item, as well as MAC, the Milton Area Chamber of Commerce, has provided a letter of support as well for this item, which I'm handing out now. I certainly would be happy to answer any questions in regards to additional rationale.
I think it's important to note in Administrator Hulick's memo, although we certainly shouldn't, necessarily alter public policy based on economic development purposes, this case would seem to be fairly compelling. The development that we're talking about is out of the TID and is accurately estimated to be about a $5 million investment into our Crossroads Business Park on the retail side. It will be a gas station. It will be there will be a fast food restaurant, and this development will take place in the spring, this coming spring. Jerry and I spent. I just signed the agreement to give access to this project from the DOT. I have literally spent my entire first term working on getting access from the DOT for this project. It has literally taken that entire time. And what they are telling us is that their new model, which is a 4,500 square foot gasoline station convenience store, it really only works if they can do their full build out and their full business model. And that includes selling beer and potentially wine. They don't sell hard liquor and that sort of a thing. And so what we're asking tonight is that the council considers removing that restriction that was placed on us by a previous council, not because we want increased alcohol density, not because we want to see increased issues associated with alcohol, but because we believe that the problems that we do see with alcohol are more associated with bars and places that serve it on site, not with take and go. That's been validated by our police chief at a previous meeting. And because this is an opportunity to easily create economic activity in the Crossroads Business Park, which will be a catalyst to future development. Alderperson Lauder.
My question would be if Chief Labor would like to comment on gasoline and beer being sold at the same location?
I think the mayor characterized it correctly. Our calls for service for the police are getting called to bars for alcohol-related incidents, and we have, I don't remember the last problem we had with, package sales from the Piggly Wiggly or Milton Travel Center where they're having problems selling to underage people. That hasn't been a problem. And so I'm not taking a stance on the issue of the extra licenses, but can tell you from our experience at the police department, our problems aren't from people buying beer and going home with it, although we do have a few of those people that are frequent flyers, but more of our problems, far more frequently, are the on-site consumption at other places.
the business people I've talked to say we need to get something started out there. We missed this opportunity to get something started out there, that it might take a while to get something. This will give us a business that pays decent wages, give people 401Ks, create some jobs, more jobs in the city, and they have been a good steward on the other end of town. Sometimes I think we have to go. I'm not a big favor of increasing alcohol licenses, but in this case, I think it's important that we get something started in this business district, and that would bring other people there. So I think we have to go beyond, this is another alcohol license, and think about what we can do for our business community, and this will help it.
And this would be the first reason for people to get off of the bypass, which is a very strong point in its favor.
Quick Trip is very popular around the state, so it would be a good reason for them to get off the bypass.
First off, the recommendations in the packet are not correct. Personnel and Finance Committee voted against this change. Did not support it. I guess my question is, are we certain that to turn down this request would kill that project?
I met with the developer on Friday, and he indicated that yes, that would be the case. That this development would not occur but for this provision.
In our previous discussions with the actual operator, the builder, the convenience store, they indicated that it would certainly push it down their priority list. It would not be one of the first projects built this spring. It would go down the list. This is a company that builds a lot of stores. They have plenty of places that they can go.
I think that something that we absolutely need to keep in mind here is that our Economic Development Commission and our Chamber of Commerce are in full support of this. These are businesses who also do sell packaged liquor. And of course, they want the business to come into town, and this is a leader of what will come out to the industrial park.
So then I assume that Casey's and the Quick Trip in town and Arts will get approval if they want to do this too, that we will continue to expand, because what would be our reason to not do it?
Well, tonight we're talking about removing the restriction on the
Right.
quota. I think a good discussion to have would be one, and one I had in a previous position, is to have what are those parameters? What is, maybe alcohol density is one of those. Maybe there's some sort of restriction on how do you prevent underage sale or sale to intoxicated persons? I think the important thing is to understand not what were we trying to treat by preventing alcohol sales at retail gas establishments, but what are the kind of those secondary actions that we're trying to prevent? So underage sale to minors, people being overserved or over intoxicated. How can we prevent those? And this particular operator utilizes a lot of technology to prevent those sorts of things. Now tonight in front of us is not an approval of a license. Tonight we're just amending an ordinance.
I understand that. My major concern is just not to have any objective criteria in place, and I am all for economic development and supporting that. I guess in the future then, I would expect that we would have some sort of objective criteria, because this, so we can do this vote tonight, but then let's come back with something because otherwise any business ends up being at the whim of the personalities of who is on the city council, and that's not fair.
Because as part of a package, that every right would be to have Casey want to sell beer. Every right would be to have the other end of town sell beer. How many licenses?
And I would say that an important factor to consider in that would also be, what do you do when your goals, your community standards are not met? When someone does get dinged a few times at a gas retail outlet for selling to underagers. So that's a very real consideration. Not all establishments are created equal in that respect. Tonight, the recommended action would be to amend Ordinance 403 as listed in your packets.
Ordinance 403, yes.
Yeah, 403, section 14400C.
I'll make a motion that we amend subsection 14400C.
We have to finish this first.
We have to, yeah, we've got to do our.
Second.
We have a
Do
motion
you want to
second.
clarify the motion?
What, can you ask for the clarification?
Yeah. Just to clarify, is the motion just to approve the first reading or to approve the first reading and waive the second and third and adopt?
Approve the first reading, waive the second and third, and adopt.
Okay.
That's okay with the second?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion from the council on that? I will invite former Alderperson Striegel up to speak for a minute. We don't normally do that, but I will invite you up.
Well, if you've already made the motion and the second, my question was, if you raise it, are you guaranteed that this company, gas station or whatever, is going to apply and get that license? Or is it gonna be up for grabs? Because if they don't apply for it, first come, first served,
Yeah,
and then
they'll be
they're
on
all
our
the way
agenda
around.
next month. This project will be on our agendas next month. So this project will be everywhere next month. Yep, so this will be moving
But you
forward.
can have Casey's apply
Casey's
and
can
Quick
apply
Trip at the same
first.
time.
They could. Yep.
So I mean, and I think we have to be careful not to make ordinances that are specific to
Right,
businesses.
right. That's why this
Is that
just,
what we're doing, Mark?
Well, there's been discussion of a possible development which would possibly benefit from this ordinance. But the ordinance itself doesn't, as the mayor noted, grant anyone any license. It merely grants the council greater discretion and authority in the granting of alcohol licenses, and you can determine that that's not appropriate and you'd like to keep it as it is. That's certainly your option. But that's basically what it does. It takes it, it amends this so it puts it back within the realm of discretion of the council as to whether it wishes to grant additional Class A licenses. It doesn't restrict it to one additional license above the current restriction, license quota, which the city has imposed on itself. The state doesn't impose it. So it'll be up to the council to determine whether to issue an additional one, an additional two, or zero. And you can determine how to do that. You've had some good discussion on that today. But just to clarify, that's the impact of this ordinance. It just merely provides the council with greater discretion on the issuance of Class A licenses.
okay. Motion tonight then, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 403, amending section 14400C, allowing the common council to exceed Class A alcohol license quota. All those in favor? Opposed? Let's do it again. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Did you vote?
4-2.
All right, 4-2. Motion carries.
I guess before we leave this,
Yes, sir.
we need to right now determine, we need to determine the criteria for issuing a license. Because you issue this one license out there, in Casey's or one of the others, so that we want it too, you're gonna have to have some criteria. You say no.
Yep.
I mean, just to say that it's up to the council to let these licenses, you can say that, but you better have some justification.
I'm going to suggest, and I was gonna do it tomorrow, but I'm gonna suggest that there be, at a minimum, a square footage, and a kind of some minimum square footage required, for this sort of a thing, and then also some sort of compliance, program to make sure that we're not, selling alcohol after the time we're supposed to, make sure we're not selling to people that we're not supposed to. And so we can bring that back at our next council meeting, and we'll have a good recommendation on that. That brings us to the end of that. Agenda item 9 is general items. Our next meeting Our next budget workshop is Thursday. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, November 5th, as the election must be on the 4th, right?
Correct.
So, Mayor Alderperson's reports.
Yes, I have, last year I had a tenant, Mike Kelly, come to council 2 different times to complain about the never-ending pounding and construction in the burnt-out, what is it, 858 Parkview apartment. The guy, Tom Lang, will bring trucks and dumpsters across, leave them on the lawn. They have destroyed the city sidewalk. And Mike Kelly, after coming twice and no enforcement of a timeline of completing this project, has moved out. I've lost a tenant for that. And here, you look down at the Common Council statement, you will strive to preserve a high quality of life. Really? You aren't preserving residences that can expect to have the ceaseless pounding, and the renovation is never ending. And I am very, very unhappy to report that I have lost a very good tenant.
I have one. The Milton Youth Coalition will be handing out trick-or-treat bags to all of the elementary school-age children on October 31st. They will be orange. They will have the Milton Youth Coalition anti-bullying, safe in our school, safe in our community logo on it, and we are very excited to have all of our younger Milton citizens having those trick-or-treat bags available to them. Yes, because next year we're upgrading them to cloth
Oh,
instead
my.
of plastic, okay? All right.
You know, one good thing that happens in council meetings, because of the way we've always been set up, is we create these factions inside. There's like a definite culture to this side of the room and a culture to this side of the room, and maybe that's our next like softball game or a badminton match or something. But
I got chief in the fire.
it's yeah, some weeks.
No, that's not.
All right. Any other alderpersons' reports?
I do.
We'll
Excuse
see.
me. I just wanted to let everybody know that for all of you dog park users and the people, of course, from out of town that are seeing us on YouTube, I hope, we're going to have the dog park cleanup on November 1st. No, we do scoops. So it sounds a lot messier than it actually is. It's really kind of a nice way to get people, dog owners together. You'll actually find that a lot of the dog owners in town who use the park take great ownership to it. So it's actually very clean, and most of the work that we do for the dog park cleanup is like brush and spreading mulch and that sort of stuff.
Should they bring gloves?
Yes, you should bring
It was
gloves.
10:30, wasn't it? Was it 10:30?
Yes. And then also, I just wanted to add, in light of our meeting last night, I'm going to reiterate what Jennifer said. If anybody has any problems with not only the Parks Committee, but any of the other committees, all of our city meetings are open to the public, and it's always good to bring any concerns to the committees. And we hope that you will.
Excellent. Okay, I'll just give a similar update. I was very pleased that the Parks Commission meeting turned out the way it did last night. Certainly didn't mean any disrespect by going to the Parks Commission. That's why 2 months ago I asked them to reconsider that brick, and then finally 2 meetings later, came in and yeah, I'm glad that it worked out. On the Parkview Drive property, I'll just mention something on that. We declared that a public nuisance at one point, and he met the requirements of that public nuisance. If there are continuing problems, the city of Milton, for all of our strengths, we do not have the ability to constantly go around and determine who is in non-compliance with certain ordinances or quality of life standards. We rely on people to continue to make those updates and complaints. We are aware in any given week of several properties around the town where people don't like how long the weeds are, where people don't like there's animals living in going in the back door, and we always address those areas. So if anybody does become aware of a property that is a potential public nuisance or a public safety hazard, we take that very seriously. We just had a report the other day where carbon monoxide was, I guess, leaking into a home and just wasn't vented properly. And fortunately, we got voluntary compliance on that. But at any given point, there are emails going around trying to make sure that our community is being maintained and that especially our rental tenants, but also our homeowners are living in safe environments and safe dwellings. So if you have anything like that, certainly either get it to me or get it to Howie or to Al. But anyway, we all get on, or the police department, Blaine. We all get on the same emails and we all work to resolve those items.
I just wish to say that he came twice
And
and
it-
did not get leave.
Yeah, but he did, because we declared it a public nuisance and we have pursued a fairly aggressive policy of.
Aggressive perception is low.
Yes, well, that may well be. A city administrator report.
Thank you. As most folks are probably aware, yesterday was the first day that you can vote in person here at City Hall. So we expect things to continually get busier and busier in the front foyer area. Luckily, we have the assistance of several poll workers who are coming in at various times throughout the day to kind of help us out. So Leanne and Carrie and the rest of us can, hopefully continue to do our jobs to the best of our ability. So we appreciate those folks' help. Poll workers are, although we only need them a couple of times a year, we have to have them, and I appreciate, the work that they do for very little amount. It's not an easy job, but it helps us all and makes it better for the community. So I appreciate that. So you can vote in person here at City Hall tomorrow if you'd like. So
And I already did yesterday.
Good.
Well
And it
done.
went very smoothly, I must say.
good.
Finance director.
As you guys know, we have scheduled our last budget workshop for Thursday. With the change that you guys made earlier this evening, I'll bring forth a proposed budget that will appear in the paper for the public notice, because that is our last scheduled meeting before we can legally get something to the paper. So other than that, I don't really have anything else.
All right, thank you very much. Director of Public Works.
Hopefully this week they'll have High Street blacktop. They're milling it today. So if the weather stays good, Thursday or Friday, they should do that. And they should blacktop our portions of Highway 26. They had a vandalism problem at the Otter Creek Bridge, so that may be delayed a couple of weeks. Someone drove through the new cement, so that's gonna take them a while to fix that. Otherwise, they had hoped to be done this week, so. But anyways, they're progressing on that, so. What Nancy was talking about is probably a kind of a weakness in our ordinance. There's no ending point for anyone with a construction project. There's a halfway point.
Yep.
And even if you only get halfway done, if you're not halfway done, all you have to do is get new permits, and then you can restart. So we just don't have an ending part for any type of construction if you're continuing progress. It says continuing progress in the ordinance, which is probably a little vague, but, you can do a little bit at a time as long as you're doing something. So that might be something in the
Could
future.
be a good thing for the Public Works Committee to look at.
Or a plan, or something,
Yeah.
building inspection thing, but, he's making progress, but not, I guess, rapid progress, so.
His financial ability is just amazing.
Anything else?
Nope, just leaf collections continuing for the whole city, so.
Great. Thank you very much. Chief of the Police Department.
We are going through on-site accreditation assessment this week, started today. And as I was telling public safety earlier, they are very, very fastidious about what they're doing and going through every file and every proof. And we're allowed to correct as they go along and make the corrections that they're requesting. Most of their comments to us have been clarification, not fix it. So far, so good. And they are here tomorrow. They do a listening session tomorrow night at 6 p.m. in the chambers here. And they also accept conference calls at a certain time tomorrow. And then they wrap up Thursday, and I think about a month later, they go before the commissioning board, the accreditation board, and make a recommendation, and then we would get approved at that time. So far, so good, I think.
It's exciting stuff. Director of the library?
We've had a very successful launch of our fundraising campaign. We had over 110 women come to our event for the 100 Women Initiative, and as of today, we have 150 women that have pledged $1,000. So it's really a swell of support from the community that's been exciting, and really is helping to launch the rest of our campaign. Our leadership team now is in process of going to foundations, companies, individuals, and they have a goal of raising $250,000, their first goal, by the end of the month. And it does look good for that. There's been people and companies that have come forward that have wanted to be the first to give. We have a math club that started at the library this month. It's for K through second grade. There's a waiting list, so just to let everybody know that we will offer it again, so if kids want to come and do it, and that meets once a week. So.
Is it a waiting list because of space or because of staff?
Both. Yeah.
Okay. Chief of the Joint Fire Department.
Just to let you know, this has been a really busy year so far, and as I reported to the commission, we are much ahead of last year, and as of yesterday, we were 150 runs over last year, which is an incredible increase for 1 year. And other than that, I spoke enough earlier, so.
Well done. Agenda item 10.
Consideration of a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85 1C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Reason, city clerk, deputy treasurer candidate.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.